Jody Leanne Sanderholm was born September 26, 1987, in Arkansas City to Brian and Cindy Sanderholm. She was the third child of her parents. She had a brother called Jason and a sister called Jennifer. From a young age, Jody was fond of dancing, and although it played a large role in Jody's life, she also did not neglect her studies. She was one of 4 valedictorians in her graduating class. While in high school, Jody was a member of the National Honor Society, a Kansas State Scholar, a Kansas Board of Regents Scholar, and earned the Outstanding Physics Student of the Year award presented by David Steinmetz. She was a member of the Ark City High School dance team for 4 years. 2 of those 4 years, she was the captain. Jody was a member instructor of Ark City Dance and a Universal Dance Association instructor. After high school, she attended Cowley College, where she studied pre-pharmacy. While at Cowley, she was a member of the Cowley Tigerette dance line. In 2007, the population of Arkansas City was about 12,000. Jody's parents, like probably other locals, thought it was a good and relatively safe place to live and raise children. However, after Jody disappeared and the details of what happened to her became known, many began to realize that safety was only an illusion and that man was the most dangerous beast. On the morning of January 5, 2007, Jody drove her car, a Dodge Stratus, to college for a dance rehearsal that was scheduled to end at 10:45. After the rehearsal, she intended to return home. Cindy called her daughter's cell phone several times, but she didn't answer, which was highly unusual. Jody always kept in touch with her family, and even if she missed a call, she would call back soon. Cindy had a bad feeling about this. She decided to get off work and go home to see if Jody was all right. When she arrived, she immediately noticed that her daughter's car was not in front of the house, and this only increased her anxiety because Cindy knew that by this time, Jody should have been back from rehearsal. Upon entering the house and looking around, Cindy realized that Jody had not returned home. Her dance uniform, which she put in the washing machine when she returned from rehearsal, was not there or in the hamper for her dirty clothes. The shower stall was dry, although Jody always showered after dance class. It soon became clear that Jody had no contact with her father or older sister, Jennifer, either. She had an appointment at noon, to which she never showed up. Cindy and Brian began calling their daughter's friends, hoping to find out where she might be. But after the morning rehearsal ended and Jody left college, none of her friends saw her. That evening, the college dance team was scheduled to perform at a basketball game with a routine of which Jody was the choreographer. She wouldn't have missed it of her own free will, but she didn't show up either. At about 6 p.m., still unable to learn anything and without waiting for their daughter to return home, Cindy and Brian contacted the police and reported her missing. Officers from the sheriff's office immediately put together flyers depicting and describing Jody, began to inquire about her last known whereabouts, and put out an APB on the vehicle she was traveling in. The police learned from Cindy and Brian that Jody had a boyfriend she had been dating since high school. His name was Colby Wilson. When contacted by phone, he reported that he had been at his brother's house in Texas for several days. The police quickly ruled him out as a potential suspect because his stay in another state was confirmed. The next day, January 6th, was very eventful. Lori Legleader, Jody's best friend with whom she had been friends and danced since high school, provided the police with important information. They both enrolled at Cowley College, where they went on to study dance. Lori reported that she left work at the Sonic Drive-In in Arkansas City around 10 p.m. Tuesday, January 2nd, and noticed a light blue car drive by the restaurant several times as she left. On her way home, she noticed a car following her in her rear view mirror. "I thought something strange was going on," Lori told the detectives. She decided to see if the car behind her was really following her, so she started turning onto different streets. The driver of the car behind her was doing the same thing, and it really scared Lori. She drove to the local police station and parked next to it, thinking that the stalker would leave her alone. She didn't see him after she stopped, so she drove home again. However, she had to go back to the parking lot near the police station because she saw the car chasing her again. Lori sat in the car for a while before driving home. She told the detectives that she didn't go to the station because she thought it was someone else's stupid prank, but that wasn't really all. On Friday, January 5th, the Tigerette dance line was rehearsing at the college. According to Lori, she and Jody got there around the same time and, as usual, parked not far from each other. Lori spotted the light blue car again. What's more, she recognized the man behind the wheel. It was a local resident, 23-year-old Justin Thurber. Lori did not know him personally, but had seen him several times in the company of his older brother and his friends. Lori and Jody left practice at the same time and were supposed to meet up later, but Jody never showed up for that meeting. Soon, several members of the dance team revealed that they too had seen Justin near the college during the past week. He always sat in his car in the parking lot and just watched. Within the first 24 hours of Jody's disappearance, police had driven all over the city but could not find her car. Arkansas City is surrounded by fields and wooded areas. They brought in a fixed-wing aircraft to search the area from the air. The car was more difficult to hide than a person because of its size, so the police hoped to be able to see Jody's car from the air. It was determined that the last time her cell phone signal was received, it was from a cell tower located near the Kaw Wildlife Area. This is a vast, wooded area along the Arkansas River. At this point in the investigation, only one person, Justin Eugene Thurber, who was identified by Lori Legleader and other members of the dance group, was considered as a person who might be involved in the disappearance of Jody Sanderholm. It is important to note here that despite his young age, Thurber was well known to the police. 3 years earlier, in 2004, he had been charged with illegal possession of banned substances. He eventually received a suspended sentence and was released. 3 months after that, he was arrested for theft and probation violation. In October 2005, he was charged with disorderly conduct. 3 months later, he was arrested for petty theft and again found to be in possession of a controlled substance. On December 31st, 2006, which was just 6 days before Jody disappeared, Thurber was arrested again for theft. That same day, after paying a $3,000 bail, he was free. Having had a merry New Year's Eve, the next day, January 1st, he began impersonating a police officer and disrupting public order. When the real cops came for him, Thurber complained of chest pain and was taken to the hospital instead of the station. Why he was not arrested after his discharge from the hospital remains unclear, nor is it quite clear why he managed to get away with it all the time. A relative of his who works for the Cowley County Police may have contributed to this, but that's only a guess. That same day, January 6th, a police officer saw Thurber's car, a light blue Cadillac, parked outside his parents' house and decided to talk to him. His father invited the officer into the house. When the police officer asked Justin where he had been yesterday, he said he had driven his car to Winfield, a town about 13 miles outside of Arkansas City, in the morning. There, according to Justin, he met up with his friend and 2 of his friend's buddies, whom he did not personally know very well. Next, the 4 of them began driving around the countryside in a car belonging to one of his friend's buddies until the car got stuck on a dirt road near Cedar Vale. Then, as Thurber claimed, he walked toward Arkansas City, which is about 30 miles from Cedar Vale. After 6 hours, he got tired of walking and called his father to pick him up. Thurber's father confirmed what he said, saying he picked Justin up wet and dirty, a couple of miles from Cowley State Fishing Lake. Justin also told the police officer that his car, which he left in Winfield, had been returned by friends. The story wasn't very convincing, but there was nothing to charge Thurber with yet, so the officer left. That same evening, officers spoke with Alexis Swatzel, who recently ended a 3-year relationship with Thurber. She told officers Thurber often took her to the Kaw Wildlife Area, southeast of Arkansas City, and she pointed out places she and Thurber would visit. When the police informed Alexis that they were investigating the disappearance of Jody Sanderholm, she was very surprised and said that Justin had once said that he had begun watching Jody when he was 13 years old. He would peep at her when she was swimming in the pool in her backyard and sometimes in the evenings, peek through the window in her room, and wait for her to start changing clothes. Police asked Alexis about her reasons for breaking up with Thurber, to which she said she had broken up with him because he was too abusive and had strange tendencies that were becoming more and more frequent. On several occasions, she said, during intimacy, he would choke her unconscious. On top of that, he asked her to fight him because he could not get aroused any other way. It was becoming more and more obvious to the police by the minute that Justin Thurber might be involved in Jodi's disappearance. The police had no evidence to link him to the girl's disappearance. But late in the evening of January 6th, Thurber was arrested anyway. Detective Eric Mata arrested Thurber on bail revocation and suspicion of criminal trespass because the investigation into Jodi Sanderholm's disappearance revealed that Thurber was on the college campus where the detective believed Thurber should not be. Thurber told Mata that he wanted to talk to his lawyer. At the same time, police officers arrived at Justin's parents' house with a search warrant. The officers took the shoes Justin had been wearing the day before when his father picked him up. The shoes were wet and were drying on a towel. Thurber's father told police he helped his son clean the mud off the shoes. The clothes Justin was wearing when his father picked him up were also recovered. But by this time, he had had time to wash them. The next day, January 7th, searchers trained to identify human activity in rugged terrain set to work in the Kaw wildlife area. They found shoe prints that matched Justin Thurber's, as well as several other smaller shoe prints. As darkness fell, they decided to continue the search the next day. On the way home, some searchers drove past Cowley County State Fishing Lake and decided to stop because they heard Thurber was wet when his father picked him up. They discovered a muddy tire track, muddy shoe prints near a public restroom, mail addressed to Jodi Sanderholm's parents in a chemical toilet, dance shoes in another toilet, and a flip-flop sandal. Investigators later retrieved cut-off sweatshirts, a wallet containing Jodi Sanderholm's driver's license and social security card, her black leotard, a tigerette jacket with Jodi Sanderholm's first name on the front, a vehicle floor mat, and a car seat cushion. The sandal matched the impressions found at the Kaw wildlife area. Searchers spent the next 2 days around Cowley County State Fishing Lake in the Kaw wildlife area. On January 9th, specialists with sonar brought in to survey the bottom of the lake discovered Jodi's sunken car. On the same day, the hope of the Sanderholm family also died. Jodi's naked body was found under a pile of leaves, logs, and twigs at the Kaw wildlife area. Authorities found DNA evidence linking Justin Thurber to both Jodi's car and her body. The car had been in the lake for more than 3 days, so police feared that the water that filled the interior had destroyed all evidence. That was partly true. Forensics spent a great many hours before they found a short hair in the interior. Carrie Melton, director of the Forensic DNA Testing Lab, ran mitochondrial DNA tests on the hair found on the driver's seat of Jodi Sanderholm's car and concluded that it was almost certainly Justin Thurber's hair. Barbara Lale, an employee of a private DNA testing company, tested samples taken from Jodi Sanderholm's right biceps and right side of her chest. She concluded that Thurber could not have been excluded as a participant, although 99% of the population could have been excluded. Cell tower data showed that on the day Jodi disappeared, her phone and Justin Thurber's phone were in the same areas at the same time. Lori Legleader, Jodi's best friend, said she saw Thurber in the college parking lot the day she disappeared. When the police looked at the camera footage provided by the college administration, they were convinced that Lori was telling the truth. Thurber was in the college parking lot at the same time rehearsal was going on, and he left that parking lot at the same time as Jodi. The tape showed that Thurber followed Jodi in his light blue Cadillac. Based on the fact that letters addressed to Jodi's parents were found near the lake, investigators speculated that Thurber had followed Jodi from the college to her home, and when she got out to retrieve the letters from the mailbox, he attacked her, pushed her into her own car, and drove her away. That theory was confirmed when a shoe print identical to the sole of Justin Thurber's sneakers was found next to the Sanderholm family mailbox. As previously mentioned, footprints of Thurber's shoes and smaller shoe impressions were found at the Kaw wildlife area. It was determined that these were the footprints of Jodi's shoes found at the fishing lake, along with her other belongings. Thurber's footprints and Jodi's footprints in the preserve were located side by side, walking along them. At one point, the searchers saw that Jodi's footprints were interrupted, and Justin's footprints went deep into the woods. This meant that he was carrying the girl further on his own. His shoe prints were also found where the body had been found. All 3 of the people Justin said he had been with the day of Jodi's disappearance denied what he said. They had not seen Thurber that day, which meant his story about the car being stuck near Cedarvale was a fabrication. The three officers drove Thurber to Cedarvale so he could show them where he said he was. Thurber was unable to determine where he said the car was stuck. Back at the police station, Thurber volunteered to take a polygraph test. He also requested that his relative, Chad Monroe, who worked for the Cowley County Sheriff's Office, be present during the questioning. The evidence found was sufficient to indict Justin Thurber. He himself denied guilt, and the judge set his bail at $1 million. Thurber's attorneys tried to convince the court that he was mentally retarded and incompetent, but were unable to do so. Thurber had graduated from high school and even attended college for some time, so the judge found the defense claim of his mental retardation unproven. The medical examiner who conducted the autopsy testified at the trial. He said that the first time he looked at the body, he had no doubt that the last hours of Jody's life were very painful. Her entire body and face were covered with bruises and abrasions. There were clear signs of strangulation on her neck. It was strangulation that was named as the cause of death of Jody Sanderholm. I can't say all the information about what the medical examiner found during the autopsy. Not all horror movie maniacs are as brutal as Thurber was to Jody. Without going into detail, and at the same time to give you some idea of what happened at the Caw Wildlife Area, I will say the following. The crime was motivated by carnal desire, and Thurber committed the crime with a stick. At trial, in addition to Thurber's ex-girlfriend, 6 other women testified, each claiming that the defendant stalked her. One of them was a co-worker of his. In one case, she even had to call the police to have an officer walk her to her car after work. It was already dark, and she was afraid to go to the parking lot because she saw Justin waiting for her. Earlier, he had left a rose and a note under the windshield wiper of her car saying he liked her and wanted to get to know her better. Several witnesses said they saw Jody Sanderholm's car on January 5, 2007. Carrie Morris, a friend of Jody's, noticed that Jody was sitting in the passenger seat as their cars passed each other in Arkansas City shortly after noon. Morris reported that the man behind the wheel of Jody's car appeared to be a large man. She called Jody's cell phone, but received no answer. 2 other women reported seeing a vehicle that looked like Jody Sanderholm's car while driving on a dirt road south of Arkansas City around 3 p.m. One of them said the driver was Thurber and identified him in court. On February 17, 2009, the jury reached a unanimous verdict, finding Thurber guilty on all accounts and recommending that he be sentenced to death. Realizing what sentence the judge would hand down, Thurber tried to negotiate a plea bargain. His lawyer told the prosecutor that Justin would plead guilty if he were not given the capital punishment. Jody's family opposed such a deal. The presiding judge took the jury's decision into consideration and sentenced Thurber to death by lethal injection in March 2009. In 2008, the state of Kansas signed the Jody Act, which, among other things, expands police authority over stalking suspects and expands the list of actions that can be considered stalking. Since the sentencing, Justin Thurber has not abandoned his attempts to appeal the court's decision. His attorneys are trying to prove that Thurber is mentally retarded. In 2018, the Kansas Supreme Court postponed Thurber's death sentence, citing a Supreme Court of the United States ruling that the execution of defendants, even those with mild developmental disabilities, is unconstitutional. The Sanderholm family said a competency hearing was held during the original trial, and Thurber was found to be fully competent at the time. Jody's mother, Cindy Sanderholm, sat in the courtroom 11 years after her daughter's passing. She said that Thurber had written letters to other girls while in prison, and this should show that he was competent. That's sick. It's just sick, Cindy said. It tells you that he is competent enough to reach out to people and write letters. He knows what he is doing. I'm sure she, Jody, pleaded for her life, and he didn't give it to her. She didn't get a second choice. She didn't get a second chance, she added. In August 2021, the Kansas Supreme Court issued an opinion announcing that a state law passed in 2020 allows Thurber, who is appealing a death sentence, to seek appointment by the Cowley County District Court of an attorney to assist in post-conviction DNA testing. Thus, even 16 years after Jody Sanderholm's passing, the final word in this case has yet to be spoken. It should also be noted that no one has been executed since Kansas reinstated the death penalty in 1994. The last time anyone was executed in Kansas was in 1965. Since then, besides Thurber, 9 other people have been sentenced to death, but no sentence has been carried out. We haven't executed anyone in that time frame, and there's no timetable to have any other future executions, said Adam Pfannenstiel, the communications spokesperson for Kansas Department of Corrections. I think it's a little shocking that Kansas reinstated the death penalty over 20 years ago, and there's not a plan yet, said Jennifer Aldridge, Jody's older sister. I thought this would have been something that would have been discussed 20 years ago when it was reinstated. Therefore, even if Thurber's death sentence is upheld, there is a good chance that it will never be carried out. 39-year-old Justin Thurber remains at the maximum security El Dorado Correctional Facility in Butler County, Kansas. According to a Kansas Legislative Post-Audit Committee report published in 2014, each of the inmates serving time in administrative segregation at El Dorado comes with an annual cost of nearly $49,000. Further, it is not only the cost to house an inmate sentenced to death. Taxpayers also pay nearly 4 times the price to prosecute a case where the death penalty is pursued by the prosecution, $395,000 per case compared to only $100,000 per case when the death penalty is not sought. For the Sandrums, taxes are added insult to an unbearable injury and a grueling wait for justice in the case of their daughter Jody. It hurts me so bad every week when I see my paycheck and I know I'm paying tax money to feed him, said Brian Sanderholm. Death is what he deserves and that's what the law stated, said Cindy Sanderholm. So we need to get the law fixed so we can use it. If it was your daughter, your son, it was our daughter. What would you want to have happen? Asked Brian Sanderholm. Most regrettably, Cynthia and Sanderholm, Jody's mother, passed away on December 2, 2022, at the age of 63. On March 12, 2018, 30-year-old Jeff Shepard stopped to enjoy a meal at Missy's Bar in Winfield, Tennessee. He was then seen by a friend getting into his truck around 9:30 p.m. calling it a night and heading home. Jeff called his mother, Connie Shepard, to let her know he should be home soon, but he never ended up making it, and there has been no word from him since. Jeff's family wondered for years what happened to him, constantly questioning where he could possibly have gone. What happened to Jeff Anthony Shepard on his way home? For years, he left his family with so many questions until the real-life diving angels came onto the scene. In McCreary County, Kentucky, lies Whitley City. It is located right in the heart of the Daniel Boone National Forest, offering its residents and visitors a variety of recreational outdoor activities. The town also has several cultural activities, ranging from art exhibitions to music concerts. Jeff was heading home to Whitley City that night from Winfield, Tennessee, and was last seen traveling on Highway 27, crossing the border into Kentucky. So where did he end up? Jeff Anthony Shepard was known to all his friends and family as a dedicated and honest man, living at home with his parents. Jeff was a very loving son and cared greatly for the well-being of his family. The 33-year-old man was also a passionate traveler and would be cruising up and down the highways. In his 1984 Ford F-150, which many of his friends commented was in rough shape, Jeff's truck, despite what anyone said, was still his favorite. It had a brown driver's side door and a red passenger side door. No matter what anyone said, Jeff truly valued all his possessions. On the night of the 12th of March, 2018, Jeff Shepard was driving around the Tennessee area and had stopped off at a town called Winfield, which lies close to the highway. A friend of his had seen him arrive at Missy's Bar, a popular tavern frequented by locals and visitors alike. The friend said he saw him come in at about 6:30 p.m. and recalled him taking off from Missy's at around 9:30 p.m. Like most people would in that situation, his friend presumed he was going home and that he would be safe. But we soon come to realize that maybe this friend could have helped more than he knew. Jeff got into his car and phoned his mother to check in. He informed her that he had stopped to grab a quick bite in Winfield and would be on his way home soon. The trip from Winfield to Whitley City was only a 15-minute drive. He had made this journey many times before and knew the region like the back of his hand. That is why his family and friends were extremely confused when a short while later, Jeff Shepard had not shown up at home in Whitley City, despite saying he was on his way. The 12-mile journey was too short and direct for him to have gotten lost and confused, especially given the fact that he was so familiar with the route. Questions began to arise about how he must have spent his day. This is where there is a great deal of speculation, as nobody could figure out the sequence of events. They came to find out that Jeff Shepard took the day off work after he allegedly fought with his assumed girlfriend. Jeff then stopped for a bite at the Cozy Inn Bar and Grill, where the bartender recalled that he didn't have anything to drink, but had mentioned that Jeff was on the way to his lawyer's office. He proceeded to the Chitwood Bar, where a fight with another man ensued. He left from there and carried on going around many bars in the area, not showing any signs of intoxication or being under the influence. The witnesses who had seen Jeff Shepard that day said he appeared fine and didn't look like anything was particularly wrong. Jeff's truck was also spotted at a gas station at 7 p.m., where another man got out of his vehicle with $10 in gas and a case of beer. This was incredibly suspicious. Shepard was later seen leaving Missy's bar. That was the last anyone saw of him or his battered Ford F-150. People were encouraged to call the Kentucky State Police if they had any leads regarding his whereabouts. His picture and description were posted on the Tennessee Missing and Unsolved Facebook group, but even that effort was to no avail. The Shepard family was extremely concerned that he did not show up that night in March. A lot of his friends in the area knew his 1984 Ford F-150 with a Kentucky license plate reading 602 LJC. His family released a missing person poster and offered a $10,000 reward to anyone who might know anything regarding his disappearance. His vehicle could be spotted a mile away as it was pretty damaged and had a very peculiar paint job, with his doors being painted different colors. There were no sightings of his truck either. They also conducted various search parties and were constantly on the lookout for their son, but he was nowhere to be seen. Given that the area he went missing in was rather rural, it was hard to conduct an efficient search. With no new information, the case ultimately goes cold for 3 years, with no new leads or any sightings, leaving little to be desired. What happened that fateful night? Where could Jeff Shepard have possibly gone in a town he knew so well? His family and friends had so many questions, but just not enough answers until 3 years later. The Chaos Divers are an Illinois-based group of dedicated divers who begin their work with an environmental purpose in mind. While they initially cleaned up waterways to restore the aquatic environment, they soon transitioned into helping families solve cold cases. Their expertise, along with advanced sonar equipment, has helped this team assist in returning so many missing people home. Hearing of this case, the team at Chaos Divers reached out to their peers at Adventures with Purpose, Depths of History, Adam Brown Adventures, and Exploring with NUG. These specialized and selfless teams all came in to help assist in the search for Jeff Shepard. The teams found it incredibly hard to begin the search, as many of the details regarding Jeff Shepard's disappearance were more speculation than fact. Nobody could say for certain in which direction he would have traveled. They could have only assumed it was heading north, towards Whitley City. The path there was surrounded by water bodies on all sides, making this search exceptionally more difficult. The diving angels scoured the many small lakes and ponds during the fall excursion, but none of these searches were successful. The Chaos Divers made a return trip to Kentucky on the December 5, 2021 at the request of his family and friends. His family had received new information regarding a pond near a rock quarry off Highway 27 near Struck, Kentucky. It was reported that a section of the guardrail around the pond had been removed, and this could have led to the possibility that a car slid down the steep embankment. Since there was no guardrail, they couldn't say for certain if a car had driven through the area. The team began the search of the pond after receiving the landowner's permission. Just a short while into the search, the team detected a signal on their sonar equipment and were alerted of a truck lying 15 feet beneath the surface. Once the family confirmed that the description matched Jeff Shepard's truck, the team prepared for a dive. The team, with the help of Graham, navigated around the truck, confirming to them that it was Jeff Shepard's pickup truck that had been submerged deep in the pond. The divers swam to the front to see if anyone was inside, but all 4 windows of the truck had been rolled up, so they were unable to see clearly. The sheriff's department quickly arrived on the scene after the team notified the family of their findings. With the assistance of Gino's heavy-duty towing and recovery, the pickup truck was soon rigged for its extraction from the pond. The Chaos Divers assisted the towing company, as they were more than aware of how the car was situated under the water. Inside the truck, they discovered human remains. A coroner was present on the scene and pronounced the individual deceased at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 5th of December, 2021. The vehicle was transported to the Pine Knot Fire Department, where the body could be removed from the vehicle. The remains were then sent to the McCreary County Coroner's Office for identification. A few days later, the reports were conclusive. Those were the remains of Jeff Anthony Shepard, who was 33 years old when he went missing in March 2018. Years later, his family finally had closure and can lay his body to rest. An investigation was conducted as to the cause of the death. The Kentucky State Police ruled the death accidental. They suspect that he would have veered off US Highway 27 and crashed into the pond. It can't be easy for families like the Shepard family that wait for years for any sign of their loved one. We thank the Chaos Divers for their dedication to helping families finally get the answers they have been looking for. Their selfless assistance has brought so many families across the country the solace that law enforcement has been unable to provide. It is because of them that the family of Jeff Anthony Shepard can move on, finally knowing what happened to their beloved son. Mysterious Hook salutes the Chaos Divers team and the law enforcement officials involved for their commitment. Rarely do we come across such selfless individuals who strive persistently to bring closure to the family of the disappeared ones. You will always have our support, Chaos Divers, and all real-life heroes. Due to the people's outstanding support, such volunteer search teams have solved many missing person cold cases. So let's make it possible for the selfless heroes to provide free services to families and law enforcement by watching their documentaries, buying their merchandise, and donating. June 10, 2018 seemed like a bright Sunday for the residents of Ohio. It was usual for Pizza Hut in St. Clairsville of Ohio to welcome their regular customers, Joni D. Davis and Brian Edgar Goff. The couple thoroughly enjoyed their dinner, and once they were done, the devoted 64-year-old caretaker Brian took 55-year-old Joni to their light blue 1990 Oldsmobile 88 four-door sedan. But after that, nobody knew where the sedan's wheels were heading. It seemed like the couple vanished with their sedan in thin air, leaving no traces behind. What happened to Brian Edgar Goff and Joni D. Davis? Had the bright Sunday determined their fate? How did the Chaos Divers enter the scene? Created partly by natural borders, Ohio is shaped by Lake Erie and the Ohio River. The state boasts an appealing combination of exciting cities, pristine natural scenery, and charming farms. Whether you're exploring Ohio for a weekend visit or an extended vacation, there is lots to see. Individuals from Ohio proudly and officially call themselves Ohioans. Ohio residents enjoy an affordable cost of living compared to other states, and the Ohio River has become an important commercial route for Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois residents. But none of them imagined that the Ohio River would hide the life of a lovely couple for more than 3 years. Our story starts right here in this Ohio state. Was September 21st, 1953, when the couple Ralph and Olga Jean were blessed with twin baby boys in Martins Ferry, Ohio. They named the boys Brian, Edgar Goff, and Colin Goff. When the twins turned 3, their mother passed away, so their great-aunt, Hannah Goff, took Brian and raised him on her farm near Martins Ferry. When Brian was 9, he moved to Saybrook, Ohio with his twin brother, older brother, and sister. In June 1971, Brian graduated from Harbor High School in Ashtabula, Ohio. After graduating, Brian worked several years for Penn Central and Conrail Railroads in Cleveland, and later in Mingo Junction. Then he moved back to Martins Ferry area and shared a home with Colin. For years, Brian also worked at Goff Trucking near Rayland, lending a helping hand to Colin. Brian was a loving, caring, kind-hearted, and hard-working person with a genuine smile. He always looked forward to summertime and attending the family gatherings on Memorial Day, July 4th, and Labor Day. Brian was also a massive fan of the Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Indians. Besides all of these, Brian devoted his time and energy to being a loving caretaker for Joni D. Davis. Joni was born to her parents, Jack and Joanne, on July 20th, 1962. She had been the best sister to Jackie Newell and a caring aunt for her nephews. Both Joni and Brian were healthcare workers, and it was over 20 years since they both started a beautiful relationship. Unfortunately, their relationship became complicated when Joni was 35. She failed to wake up one morning and remained in a coma for months. Finally, after an extended stay at a rehabilitation facility, Joni relearned how to walk, speak, and feed herself. But her brain damage was permanent, and she required full-time care. However, Brian never left her. Instead, he became Joni's caretaker. Nevertheless, the pure bond between the couples continued for years. And everything seemed fine for 64-year-old Brian and 55-year-old Joni until 2018. The hottest June month was turning Ohio State into beautiful scenery. June 10th, 2018 was a fine Sunday. Day was no different for the couples who regularly visited Pizza Hut in St. Clairsville during the weekend. Brian and Joni stuck to routine and structure by dining at Pizza Hut on Sunday evening. The couple enjoyed their dinner without realizing that it would be their last meal. When the clock was ticking around 7 p.m., Brian took Joni to their light blue 1990 Oldsmobile 88 four-door sedan with Ohio license plate EYA 7482. The hoped the couple would follow their routine of going to the gas station on the island, then to Reese Cups, and finally to have a lottery ticket. As hours passed, nobody from Joni's family ever heard from them again. Brian and Joni had neither completed their routine visit nor reached their home. It seemed like the couple disappeared with their sedan. Joni's family members soon realized the mysterious disappearance of the couple. So the family went to Brian and Joni's home on Coleraine Pike, found their clothes, medications, several credit cards, money, and some other things that they had laid out. Joni's family thought that the couple never reached home. So as per Brian and Joni's schedule, the family members knew that they would have gone to Pizza Hut. With the help of the surveillance video at the Pizza Hut, the family members found out that the couple didn't stay on National Road through Bridgeport. Joni's family assumed that their sedan would have turned off, either taking I-70 to Route 214 or taking Shermont Road. So, Joni's family decided to report the missing couple to the Belmont County Sheriff's Office. When officials questioned the appearance of Brian, Joni, and their whereabouts, the family members described Brian as a 5-foot, 10-inch tall man who weighed around 190 pounds. They added that Joni was 5 feet, 2 inches tall woman, and she weighed about 138 pounds. Joni's sister's fiancé, Paul Newell, informed the officials about the surveillance video at Pizza Hut. He added that Brian and Joni weren't spontaneous enough to decide and take a trip on a whim. So with all of this information, the Belmont County Sheriff's Department started their inquiries. Both the officials and family had searched for Brian and Joni for a week, but unfortunately nothing led them to find the couple. People in Ohio started to speculate that it was a murder-suicide, but the family never believed that. The scope was widening for the missing people. Even after 9.5 days, Joni's family continued to work with law enforcement, and the Belmont County Sheriff's Department found surveillance recording from a local gas station that seems to indicate the pair was last seen going north. The family believed the investigation needed to move north as well. Fortunately, Brian had his cell phone and the official spotted the last location. The cell phone was pinged for the final time in the area of Little Rush Run, past the Raylan Marina in Ohio. So the officials performed numerous searches for Brian and Joni in that area. The sheriff's offices in Jefferson and Belmont counties offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the discovery of the missing couple. Both law enforcement agencies have conducted aerial surveillance and surface searches with trained canines since the summer of 2018. Even Martin's Ferry Councilman Jack Regis followed the case closely, hoping that the two individuals would reappear with an incredible story. But unfortunately nothing turned up. Ohio was experiencing all seasons, but nothing could change the misery of the mourning family. All that Joni's family members wanted was to have closure. And after 3.5 years of Brian and Joni's disappearance, the chaos divers came across the Ohio River to search for Karen Adams, and the couple's case got the attention of the divers team. As many might know, chaos divers are selfless people who started as an environmental cleanup organization to make a better place for all aquatic life. And later, they transformed into selfless heroes. The diving angels always believed that many people disappearing with a vehicle for a long time had a very high potential of being found in the water. So initially, they saw people by accident, and now they're doing it purposefully, traveling the country and trying to bring closure to families of the vanished ones, which is the ultimate aim. After hearing about Brian and Joni, the divers team in the area didn't want to return to Illinois before trying to find them. So the real-life diving angels gathered all information about the couple's whereabouts and their last cell phone pings. As the officials had confirmed, the last known location was in the area of Little Rush Run. The chaos divers knew that the Ohio River was the nearest body of water. Then the diving teams decided to search for Brian and Joni there. It was November 11th. With their motorboats, the chaos divers team was ready to search for Brian and Joni. They used their sonar technology and magnet to find the vehicle. The diving angels jumped into the water and the sky started to turn dark. Fortunately, the mild light from the sky was enough for the diving angels to read the license plate they had found. It was an Ohio license plate that read EYA 7482 and it belonged to Brian. The diving angels notified the FBI and Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Crime Scene Unit, and Jefferson County officials. And they discussed the recovery of the vehicle. Finally, they planned to pull the vehicle out of the water the following day. When the sun's rays hit the early morning hours in Ohio State, the diving angels found that the license plate belonged to a light blue 1990 Oldsmobile 88 four-door sedan. The sedan was submerged in 8 feet of water about 15 feet off of the shoreline. The vanished couple strapped in their seat belts. The diving team found the vehicle just 1 mile south of where the couple's cell phone pinged. The vehicle was in a shallow portion of the river off Old Route 7. So the Jefferson County officials and chaos divers carefully pulled the car out with human remains. The officials mentioned that the autopsies had to be completed to confirm identities and determine the causes of death. Then the Jefferson County officials added that a team of forensic experts would process the vehicle to gather evidence. And finally, the medical examiner confirmed that the corpses belonged to Brian and Joni. After being missing for more than 3 years, the discovery of the bodies of Joni Davis and Brian Goff finally brought some closure. Throughout the case, the law enforcement became friendly with the Chaos Divers team, and one of the sheriffs on the case took the diving angels to dinner. Also, the Toronto Fire Department helped the diving team with a cylinder refill. It was a sweet gesture that the Chaos Divers fully deserved. Mysterious Hook salutes the Chaos Divers team and the law enforcement officials involved for their commitment. Rarely do we come across such selfless individuals who strive persistently to bring closure to the family of the disappeared ones. You will always have our support, Chaos Divers, and all real-life heroes. Due to the people's outstanding support, such volunteer search teams have solved many missing person cold cases. So, let's make it possible for the selfless heroes to provide free services to families in law enforcement by watching their documentaries, buying their merchandise, and donating. Case of Kelsey Smith went shopping for a gift and vanished without a trace. How often do laws enacted at the state level or the rules and policies of individual companies designed to protect people and make their lives more comfortable and safe end up causing harm rather than good? In today's story, a mobile phone operator refused to provide the location of a missing girl citing privacy laws. In reality, however, the company was obstructing the investigation, delaying the process. Although tragically, it was too late to assist the girl. In other cases, timely access to such data could save someone's life. The case of young Kelsey Smith, who was tragically killed just a month after celebrating her 18th birthday, not only shook the United States, but also captured the attention of the world, as it was widely reported in international media. The girl was abducted in broad daylight from a crowded location, and her body, bearing signs of violence, was later discovered outside the city. The search for Kelsey took almost a week due to the inability to track her movements through her cell phone signal. This circumstance led to much debate and set a precedent that resulted in a series of amendments and the passage of a law named after the victim. But let's look at Kelsey Smith's story from the beginning and try to understand how she was abducted right outside a shopping center under the watch of dozens of surveillance cameras and whether this tragedy could have been avoided. We will also explore the personality of the abductor and criminal who was considered by all to be a loving husband and caring father. Who is Edwin Hall? We will begin our examination of this difficult case by getting to know the man who caused the terrible tragedy. Edwin Roy Hall, friends knew him as Jack Hall, was born in 1981, April 17th in the small town of Lee's Summit, located almost on the border of the states of Missouri and Kansas. He was the second child in a low-income and extremely disadvantaged family. Edwin's childhood was hard, if not to say harsh. The parents of the boy used large quantities of hot drinks and illegal substances, did not engage in the upbringing of children and mistreated them. Later, Hall will tell about the fact that at the age of 5, he was intimately abused by his uncle, his father's brother, but unequivocally confirm or deny this statement is simply not possible. Many thought that this detail was invented by the perpetrator's lawyer in order to make his client look like a victim of circumstances at the trial and try to mitigate his punishment. But be that as it may, at the age of 6, Edwin found himself in an orphanage after his father was behind bars and his mother was deprived of parental rights. In the following years, the boy changed several foster families, but each time he was abandoned after a while and returned back to the orphanage. This was due to the uncontrolled aggression of the child, as well as his cruelty. From an early age, Hall showed sadistic tendencies towards animals. He liked to torture them and watch the suffering. The boy did not recognize anyone's authority, disobeyed his foster parents, stole and ran away from home. His last foster family returned Edwin to state custody at the age of 15. This was after the teenager attacked his stepsister with a knife. Then the tragedy was avoided and the boy was pitted and not prosecuted. However, a year later, he again came to the attention of the police when he deliberately hit another orphanage pupil who was much younger than him on the head with a baseball bat. As an adult, Hall had no record with the police and he seemed to have matured, taken charge, and finally reformed. At the age of 20, he married a girl named Alita, who bore him a son a year and a half later. Edwin got an old Chevrolet truck from the 70s on which he worked, transporting various goods. His neighbors knew him as a quiet, humble, and friendly guy, as well as a good family man. However, he also had another secret life which became known only when Hall found himself in the dock for committing serious crimes. Who was the victim? Kelsey Smith. Kelsey and Smith was born in 1989 on May 3rd in a place called Overland Park, which ranks as the second most populous city in the state of Kansas. She was the third of 5 children in the large and very close-knit family of Gregory and Missy Smith, growing up alongside her older brother Steve and sister Lindsay, as well as her younger siblings, Katie and Zach. She was very close to all of them. The family patriarch, Gregory "Greg" Smith, was a former military man and a veteran of the United States Navy. He had also served in the police force for over 2 decades and was now enjoying his well-deserved retirement. Meanwhile, the mother, Missy Smith, had dedicated her life to healthcare, having worked for many years at one of the local hospitals. Despite her professional commitments, she brilliantly managed to balance work with raising her numerous offspring and creating a cozy home environment. From a young age, Kelsey was an extremely active, sociable, and theatrical child. She loved to sing and dance, attended a music school where she learned to play several musical instruments, and eagerly participated in school theater productions and choir performances. In addition to this, she thoroughly enjoyed gymnastics and loved soccer, often attending various sporting events with her father and brothers, and she was a fan of the local team. Young Smith had many friends, possessed a great sense of humor, was talented in numerous areas, and knew how to make a good impression on those around her. She also had a profound love for animals from childhood and dreamed of going to college after high school to pursue a career as a veterinarian. In her senior years of high school, Kelsey took a job in the local orchestra, where she played the clarinet, performing at various city events. This job allowed her to save enough money in just 6 months to buy her first personal car, a 1987 Buick Regal. Her parents weren't too fond of the fact that her car was older than she was and offered to add some money from the family budget to buy something more recent. However, it was crucial for her to purchase her first vehicle independently with her own money, so she declined their offer. Kelsey's personal life. It's noteworthy that the Smiths went to great lengths to provide their children with the very best, caring deeply for their education and holistic development. However, they also raised their offspring with a strong sense of discipline. There were clear rules in their home that everyone abided by without exception. For instance, all family members were expected to share their plans and always inform each other if they were going to be out late. Kelsey herself was always punctual, never late, and would always tell her parents where she was going and who she was spending time with. During her senior year, Kelsey entered into a romantic relationship with a young man named John Beersmith. According to Kelsey, it was a deep and mutual love at first sight, the kind you read about in books or see in movies. The couple rang in the new year of 2007 together, and from then on were practically inseparable. Smith's partner, a year her senior, appeared to be a serious young man who treated his beloved with the utmost care and respect. Both sets of parents approved of their children's choice and did not stand in the way of their relationship. In May 2007, Kelsey celebrated her 18th birthday. That same month, she graduated from high school and was thrilled to learn that she had been accepted into a prestigious college in Kansas, where she intended to study veterinary medicine. The following days were, without exaggeration, some of the happiest in the young woman's life. Unfortunately, they turned out to be her last. Smith, along with her classmates, attended parties celebrating the end of high school. She had a great time, fully enjoying the festive atmosphere as well as romantic dates with her beloved. At this point, she'd achieved everything she had wished for: admission into her dream college, a relationship with a worthy young man who was about to propose, and it seemed a long, happy life lay ahead of her. The disappearance from the mall parking lot. On June 2, 2007, Kelsey and John were preparing to celebrate a significant milestone in their relationship, the 6-month anniversary of when they first started dating. John planned to make the day even more memorable by proposing to Kelsey. He had a beautiful engagement ring custom made for the occasion, reserved a table for 2 at a restaurant, and the evening was set to be one of the happiest in their lives together. Kelsey was unaware of the upcoming proposal, which was meant to be a surprise. She too was looking for a gift to surprise and delight John. That Saturday, she styled her hair, did her makeup, dressed up, and drove her car to a Target Corporation store located just 10 minutes from her home. There was no indication of the tragedy that was about to unfold. Around 7 in the evening, she called her mother to say she had found a gift for John, but needed to find the perfect gift bag for it, preferably something with a romantic touch. Missy suggested checking a shopping mall across the street from Target, confident that it would have what Kelsey was looking for. Kelsey thanked her mother for the advice and said she would be home soon, where John was supposed to pick her up at 8 o'clock. That was the last time Missy heard her daughter's voice. Kelsey never made it back home. When John arrived at 8 with a large bouquet of flowers, he was shocked and frightened to find that Kelsey was not there. Her parents were equally terrified, as it was completely out of character for her not to answer phone calls or texts. She vanished in broad daylight, in a busy area, and no one noticed her disappearance. Search and investigation. The family patriarch, along with his 2 eldest children, set out to search for their daughter. Upon finding her car parked at the Oak Park Mall, a sliver of hope emerged that Kelsey might still be inside the mall for some unknown reason. However, after searching through all the floors and stores and inquiring with the salespeople and security guards if anyone had seen the girl, they were convinced she was not there. Returning to the car, which appeared undisturbed without any signs of struggle or violence, the father, leveraging his experience as a former police officer, decided not to touch anything. It was possible the car was part of a crime scene, and it was crucial not to tamper with or destroy any evidence. The girl's parents reported her missing to the police that same day, but were initially met with resistance to start an immediate search. The explanation was that since Kelsey was 18, she wouldn't legally be considered missing until 24 hours had passed since her disappearance. However, Kelsey's father, not one to back down and using his old connections, insisted on an immediate search for his daughter. Moreover, He made inquiries to see if any hospitals in the city had admitted women matching their daughter's description. Kelsey's family and fiancé were interviewed that same evening to establish their alibis and rule them out as suspects, a standard procedure. Surveillance footage from the Target store was also reviewed. The videos showed Kelsey entering the store, browsing the selection, making a purchase, and then, while talking on the phone, leaving the building to head back to her car. At that moment, she was speaking with her mother, asking where to find a gift bag, and then headed to the mall across the street, following her mother's advice. Essentially, Kelsey simply drove out, turned around, and parked at the Oak Park Mall, leaving her car near the side entrance almost against the wall. Her car was thoroughly inspected by experts. It seemed untouched from the outside. The gift she bought for John was on the passenger seat, and her backpack with personal items, a tablet, and a wallet containing about $300 in cash was in the back. Therefore, a robbery was quickly ruled out. It appeared that the car's owner had left only with her credit card and phone in her pocket, as everything else remained inside the car. No signs of a struggle, blood, or damage were found. There were no foreign fingerprints except for one found on the driver's seatbelt. This fingerprint belonged to neither Kelsey, her relatives, nor her boyfriend. Issues with the cellular company tracking the young woman's location could have been possible through the signal of her mobile phone. By that time, the device itself had become inaccessible, presumably turned off or damaged. But it was still feasible to determine the last known location where the mobile phone was active in order to narrow down the search area. However, Verizon Communications, the wireless carrier, did not provide the necessary data for the investigation for several days. Interestingly, the company did not outright refuse to cooperate, but kept promising to look into the matter, effectively dragging out the process. Back in 2007, telecommunications companies were allowed to withhold subscriber data from law enforcement agencies, including the police or FBI, without a specific court order. They cited information privacy laws, and even situations where an individual's safety or life might be at risk were not considered exceptions to this rule. The disturbing stranger. Upon closer examination of the surveillance footage, a chilling detail was uncovered. A mysterious stranger following the young woman like a shadow. He didn't stand out at first because he always kept his distance and didn't attempt to interact with Kelsey directly. The individual in question was a Caucasian male with a pleasant appearance, estimated to be in his early to mid-20s, sporting dark, short hair and a light beard. He was dressed casually in a plain white t-shirt and black shorts. He entered the Target store roughly half a minute after the girl and followed her through all the sections she visited, maintaining a few meters distance. This mysterious man was captured by all the surveillance cameras that Kelsey was, and later during the trial, the prosecution would describe his behavior as akin to a predator stalking its prey. He exited the store after her and, making sure she was alone, followed her to the Oak Park parking lot in his Chevrolet truck. It's likely that he overheard her conversation with her mother, as he was practically behind Kelsey while she was on the phone. Consequently, he could have learned about her plans to visit the neighboring shopping center. Unfortunately, Smith parked her car in a poorly chosen spot next to a side door near a storage area where shadows fell on her vehicle, making it nearly impossible to discern the events on the camera footage. While Kelsey was still seated in her car, the truck parked beside her and a figure in a white t-shirt and black shorts emerged. The stranger approached her from the driver's side door, and then she, presumably under the threat of harm, got behind the wheel of his Chevrolet, and the truck drove off in an unknown direction. Media attention and alert viewers. From the outset, largely thanks to the connections and experience of Gregory Smith, the media were enlisted to cover the investigation. Smith knew that the louder the outcry, the broader the coverage in the press and the more attention it garnered, the higher the chances of finding their daughter and bringing the responsible party to justice. The story was covered not only in national but also in international media, including on the popular show, America's Most Wanted. When surveillance footage revealed the mysterious stranger following Kelsey, the frame showing his face most clearly were broadcasted in the news, urging people to come forward if they recognized the man. That same evening, the police began receiving calls from individuals claiming to have seen the man in various cities and even states. Although most of these reports were mistaken, each one was investigated. On June 6th, a Mrs. Miguez called in, stating she recognized her neighbor Edwin Hall in the footage, but had hesitated to report it initially due to doubt. However, seeing the information about the truck removed her last doubts, as Hall also drove an old 1970s Chevrolet. Horrific discovery at Longview Lake and suspect's arrest. On June 6, 2007, several pivotal events unfolded in the investigation. First, crucial data regarding the last known location of Kelsey's phone signal was finally obtained from Verizon Communications. A specific cell tower was pinpointed, establishing a search radius of 1.1 miles to the north of it. Within 45 minutes of initiating the search operation, the lifeless body of the young woman was found in the brush near Longview Lake, Missouri, approximately 30 miles from where she was abducted. The medical examiners determined that Kelsey had been brutally assaulted and then strangled with her own belt. Her body was discovered without clothing, except for the belt used to strangle her around her neck. After the assault, her body was callously discarded in the bushes, covered only slightly with dry branches. Over the 4 days it lay exposed under the June sun, her remains were severely disfigured by insects and other wildlife, making them almost unrecognizable. Nonetheless, the examination confirmed that it was indeed the missing young Smith. The second significant event on June 6th was the arrest of the main suspect. When the police arrived at the man's residence, he was completely calm, acknowledged that his friends called him Jack, and agreed to provide a statement at the station. During the interrogation, he identified himself as Edwin Hall. Presented with a photograph of Kelsey, he claimed never to have seen her before. Even when shown surveillance footage from the store showing him following her closely, he insisted he had merely visited Target for personal reasons and hadn't noticed her, suggesting their appearance together in the footage was merely a bizarre coincidence. Irrefutable evidence. Edwin was evidently confident that he had left no trace behind and could not be held accountable. His van was clean. He had assaulted the victim using contraception, leaving no DNA evidence. Therefore, he agreed to cooperate with the investigation and even volunteered to provide his DNA sample and fingerprints. Crucially, his thumbprint matched the one found on the victim's car's seatbelt buckle, becoming a pivotal piece of evidence. Furthermore, during a thorough search of the suspect's home, a hidden air pistol was found with Kelsey's DNA traces on the barrel. Hall was then officially charged with the abduction, assault, and termination of the young woman's life. Since Smith was abducted in Kansas, but her lifeless body was discovered in Missouri, there arose a question regarding the jurisdiction of the trial. This detail was significantly important as it affected the potential sentence. In Missouri, the perpetrator faced the possibility of capital punishment. Trial and sentence Hall, realizing the gravity of his situation and after consulting with his attorney, decided to fully admit his guilt and disclose the details and circumstances of the crime in hopes of receiving a lesser sentence. He recounted how he noticed Kelsey as she entered the store and followed her. Indeed, he was close enough to overhear her phone conversation, learning she planned to visit the shopping center across the street. Edwin made sure Smith was alone, followed her to the adjacent parking lot, and was pleased when she parked in a secluded spot near the side entrance. He then emerged from his vehicle, armed with a pistol, waited for the victim to return to her car, and prevented her from closing the door as she was getting into the driver's seat. Apparently, she had already pulled out the seatbelt, but he didn't allow her to buckle up, leaving his print on it in the process. Next, he placed the pistol barrel in the unfortunate girl's mouth, coercing her to move to his vehicle's driver's seat under threat. Smith drove Hall's truck while he aimed the weapon at her and instructed where to go. Upon reaching a remote area at the state border, he ordered her out of the truck and led her into the bushes. There, he assaulted her, strangled her with the belt, and covered her body with branches. He meticulously cleaned his truck's cabin to remove any fingerprints, DNA, or other traces of the victim's presence, and hid the pistol with Kelsey's saliva at his home, confident it would never be found. When asked about his motive, he couldn't provide a clear explanation, but indifferently commented on her fantastic legs. Additionally, during the investigation, several other women and girls victimized by Hall's actions came forward. As a result, charges of corruption of a minor, harassment, and theft were added to the existing accusations. Hall's lawyer attempted to appeal to the court's sympathy, highlighting his client's troubled childhood, past victimhood, lack of parental care, and upbringing in foster homes. The defense's efforts were in vain, but the lawyer was the only person to speak on the defendant's behalf and support him. Hall's wife was present at all court hearings, but sat quietly in a corner, refusing to defend her husband. On September 16, 2008, Johnson County's judge sentenced Edwin Roy Hall to 27 life sentences without the possibility of parole. After hearing the verdict, the defendant apologized to the Smith family for his actions and then broke down in tears. He is currently serving his sentence at the Hutchinson Correctional Facility in Kansas. The Kelsey Smith Act. The role of Verizon Communications in this case, which hesitated for 4 days to provide data regarding the last known location of the missing girl's phone signal, drew significant attention. The company's leadership cited privacy laws and the absence of a court order, the issuance of which would take time. Although it was later determined that this information wouldn't have saved young Smith, in other situations, it could help preserve the lives and health of individuals in danger. This led to the enactment of the Kelsey Smith Act by Kansas in 2009, mandating telecommunications companies to provide subscriber location information when there is a risk of death or serious physical harm to the individual. An additional 29 states, including Missouri by 2012, adopted similar legislation. In 2021, Oklahoma, Montana, and Illinois also passed the Kelsey Smith Act. Since its enactment, this law has helped save many lives. For instance, in 2015 in Lenexa, Kansas, when a perpetrator stole a car with a child in a car seat, the police were able to locate him within half an hour by tracking the signal from the mobile phone left on the back seat by the child's mother. In 2021 in Illinois, a similar method was used to find a young woman who attempted to end her life by jumping off a cliff. She survived, albeit with significant injuries. Prompt tracking of her phone signal led to her rescue. Interestingly, the Smith family never requested the law to be named after their deceased daughter. The idea came from Kansas Senator Rob Olson. Following their tragedy, the girl's family established a foundation to assist crime victims and continues to raise awareness among young people about safety issues. Early in May 2022, the Danville police were notified that a 26-year-old woman and mother of 2 named Abigail Brandenburg was missing from her home in Danville, Illinois. She was last seen driving up the Denmark Road Bridge early one night in May, never to be seen again. Her fiancé and 2 young children were worried for days regarding her whereabouts, knowing that her mental health had gotten worse in the days before she went missing. Several days passed by and the family grew increasingly concerned for her well-being. It appeared that she had driven off into the night, leaving no trace behind, or so they thought. What happened to Abigail Brandenburg? Where did she go that fateful Thursday night? What brought the chaos divers onto the scene to help? Nestled in the heart of Vermilion River County, Illinois lies Danville, a quiet little town home to an abundance of parks and recreational activities available for its small number of residents. The quiet town is known for many of its remarkable historic sites, giving visitors lots to see. Danville is home to Lake Vermilion, a 1,000-acre reservoir popular for fishing and water activities. No one would suspect that Lake Vermilion would also be associated with a great deal of sadness and pain. Abigail Marie Brandenburg was born in Danville, Illinois to Nathan and Julie Brandenburg. A warm and generous person, Abigail was a well-liked child who blossomed into a headstrong and successful woman. She graduated from her high school Schlarman Academy in 2013 and went on to obtain her bachelor's degree from Indiana State University and Danville Area Community College. Abigail had 2 children, all while pursuing higher education, but that didn't stop her from being a completely hands-on and fully devoted mother and partner. She spent time with her 2 young daughters doing arts and crafts and going on walks with her fiancé, to whom she was newly engaged. She was known to her small circle of friends as being a gentle and soft-spoken person that had the ability to light up any room she entered. Unfortunately for Abigail, she had demons of her own, with many circumstances in her life causing a rapid deterioration of her mental health. Her worsening mental health became too much of a burden for her to bear, and she began to have thoughts of taking her own life. Despite the love and support from her family, Abigail's suicidal thoughts grew increasingly worse. She was loved and cherished by her family and her friends, and that is why her disappearance on the 5th of May prompted a large community response who were increasingly concerned for her safety and well-being. With her mental health getting to the point it did, many had reasons to be concerned. Groups gathered together in the town of Danville, praying for her safe return. Abigail was reported to have been last seen at 8 p.m. on the 5th, driving across Denmark Road Bridge above the lake. Surveillance cameras had captured her 2009 red Ford Edge going north over Lake Vermilion. The Chaos Divers, a team of rescue divers, were alerted by a subscriber on their channel of Abby's disappearance. The Chaos Divers are a team of rescue and search divers who are often the lifeline to the many families who are looking for answers, sometimes offering more assistance than the authorities themselves. As many of you may know, Chaos Divers are a compassionate group of people who initially started off as an environmental cleanup group aiming to improve aquatic life. Through their many dives, they transformed into a group of selfless heroes, assisting on a multitude of cold cases. Since it had been less than a week since Abigail Brandenburg went missing, the team arrived and began the search immediately on the 11th of May, 6 days after she was reported missing. The family met the team of specialized divers at the Vermilion County boat ramp, where they shared the additional details that would help them with their search for Abby. The Chaos Divers team explained to the family how they would be conducting the search on their boats with the necessary sonar equipment. They began their search of Vermilion Lake since her car was last spotted traveling on the Denmark Road Bridge. The team began by investigating established boat ramps and boat docks, as this is usually where most evidence is found. They explored the area around the lake, close to where her last known license plate was detected. The team navigated the boat through the waters of the lake, hoping to pick up a signal on their sonar equipment. Not too far along into the search, the team of divers noticed a gaping hole in the trees on the other side of the boat dock. The shrubs and trees appeared fresh, as though something had driven through them. This immediately signaled to the team of experts that something was out of place and needed to be investigated. The divers approached this section of trees and immediately sensed an anomaly in the water and detected the presence of a large metal object. Through their sonar readings, they could tell that the car they had detected was submerged in the water upside down. Could this be the missing Ford Edge that belonged to Abigail Brandenburg? The investigation continued and the search team looked for more answers. The team of divers was almost certain that they had found the missing vehicle and dropped their mega life in the water to capture a clearer image of what lay beneath. They discerned that there was a vehicle there and it was upside down. The team met back with the family at the boat dock to discuss their findings and outline the next steps they would take. Britain from Depths of History and Jacob from the Chaos Divers team dressed in their diving gear to explore the vehicle that they found. The divers made their way from the dark to the marker line that had been set up by the team venturing through the murky waters of Lake Vermilion. A short while later, the divers found the license plate of the Ford Echo on the dock, signifying with absolute certainty that the car they had discovered at the bottom of Vermilion Lake was in fact Abby's. The divers presented the plate to the family, who confirmed it was Abigail's. From that moment onwards, the next steps were to carefully extract the car from the lake. The local law enforcement of Danville arrived, along with the county's own dive team, preparing for the removal of the car. The team at Chaos Divers shared all their information and findings so that the authorities could navigate the water with ease. It was an extremely daunting task, as the car was upside down and would have to be carefully maneuvered. Abigail Brandenburg's car was extracted from the water, and they found her body inside her vehicle. An autopsy was conducted on her body after it was extracted from the lake. The authorities have not yet announced the cause of death, but have remarked they found no reason to suspect foul play. The details of this case are still being investigated. Despite the trauma of losing Abigail, had it not been for the team of Chaos Divers, the family would have gone on for years without any closure. It cannot be easy for these divers to find bodies and pieces of evidence that point to no signs of life. It is essential then to look at the positives, such as helping a family find the answers that they had been looking for. Jacob from Chaos Divers remarked that the body was not found anywhere near a boat ramp, indicating to them that she did not want to be found. Abigail Brandenburg is no longer in pain, but leaves behind a grieving family who miss her every day. The assistance of experts like the Chaos Divers and Depths of History brings so many families the much-needed closure they require to move on. We thank the team at Chaos Divers and Depths of History who voluntarily perform such selfless service. It's only due to support that volunteer search teams have been able to solve crimes that have been cold for decades. So let's make it possible for Chaos Divers and Depths of History to provide their services. Please head on over to their channel. Support them by buying their merchandise or directly donating. It is only because of them that so many families finally have some peace of mind. We hope that cases like this bring a sense of hope to many who hope for the closure that they don't have. It was the hottest month of the year in Oak Ridge, Tennessee in 2005. And it was the year when Miriam Ruth Hemphill, a woman from Tennessee, lost her daughter. On a fine Friday, Miriam took her beige or bronze-colored 1999 Buick LeSabre with the license plate ABA 676 and began to drive. But neither her husband, Bill Hemphill, nor Miriam ever saw her again. What happened to Miriam Ruth Hemphill in Oak Ridge? Did she commit suicide due to the loss of her daughter? What made the Depths of History and Exploring with Nug enter the scene? The city is known for Melton Hill Lake. It is a place for relaxation and recreation. Anglers cast their lines out to capture bass. Boaters leave ripples in their wake as they cut through the calm surface. Rowers from all around the nation go to compete in elite events. But Melton Hill Lake in Anderson County has a darker side that everyone was unaware of. The captain of the Oak Ridge Police Department had stated that the water seemed to draw those who wanted to end their lives. It is an excellent location to visit and sit by the lake. But regrettably, in a few instances, people have met their end in that lake. Melton Hill Lake and its surrounding bodies of water have experienced such sadness. Many police forces near a lake or river reported crimes or fatalities connected to the water. However, Melton Hill Lake has received more coverage recently. A newborn boy's body with his umbilical cord still connected was discovered in the lake in March 2020. The mother was suspected to be a young girl. In addition, authorities were aware of at least a half-dozen automobiles currently resting on the bottom of the lake, frequently used as a disposal site for unwanted or stolen vehicles. Many times, cars drove off the road and landed right into the water. While Melton Hill Lake was turning into a crime spot, another discovery connected to the 16-year-old mysterious disappearance case was made. It was the disappearance of Miriam Hemphill. Who was Miriam Hemphill, and how did she end up in the lake? Well, to find out, we need to go back to 2005. Our story began in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. 84-year-old Miriam Hemphill was living in there with her husband, Bill Hemphill. They both had a daughter named Connie Shapek. Everything seemed fine for the Hemphill family until 2005. Unfortunately, the initial months of 2005 brought misfortune to the family. First, Bill and Miriam's 44-year-old daughter, Connie Shapek, was found dead inside her car in a university parking lot in Dayton, Ohio. The news devastated Miriam and her family, and Connie's death was ruled a suicide. A few months later, on July 22, 2005, and months after Connie's demise, Miriam took her 1999 Buick LeSabre with the license plate number ABA 676 and began driving. Hours passed, but there were still no signs of Miriam or her car. Bill Hemphill thought she had vanished and immediately reported her disappearance to the officials. Bill contacted the officials and told them that Miriam had disappeared with her car. He added that Miriam left behind a note for him that alluded to their daughter who had committed suicide 3 months earlier. When the officials questioned Bill about Miriam and her whereabouts, Bill described her as an exceptionally social individual with an excellent memory who had been recently active in her church. Bill mentioned that Miriam didn't take extra clothes during her disappearance. All that she had was very little money. Also, while going through her activities, they noticed that Miriam had made no transactions using her bank accounts or credit cards since her disappearance. After gathering all the information, the officials marked Miriam's case as a disappearance case and started to look for Miriam and her car. Authorities had wondered if Miriam might be in the lake somewhere. So the Oak Ridge Police and the Blunt Special Operations Response Team, or BSORT, searched parts of Melton Lake for her. But the case soon went cold. Years went by, but there were no leads. Miriam's husband left their Kingsley Road house. As time went by, began to believe that Miriam could have committed because she could not take the loss of their dead daughter. Bill passed away in 2016 without knowing what happened to Miriam. After 16 years, the case was still unsolved. Nobody anticipated the unexpected turn this disappearance case would take in November 2021. Exploring with Nug and Depths of History were behind the new leads. Exploring with Nug are compassionate people who started out as an environmental cleanup and later transformed into selfless heroes. These divers always believed that many people disappearing with their vehicles for an extended period had a high possibility of being found in nearby bodies of water. As a result, they were gaining an international reputation. While dedicating their time to finding missing people, Miriam Hemphill's case got their attention since Oak Ridge was close enough to North Georgia. They also thought that there were enough clues to solve the case. In Miriam's case, all the indicators showed the diving angels that she could be in a body of water. And so when they looked deeper into it, there was a big lake near town, and it was Melton Hill Lake. The Exploring with Nug team partnered with Depths of History while searching for Miriam and her vehicle. The diving angels used sonar, which can outline objects of interest resting on a bottom of a lake. Sonar revealed 4 vehicles of interest. Of the 4 cars, they hit pay dirt on the third one, which was 25 feet down. Unfortunately, it was not something people could spot from the surface with the naked eye. Zebra mussels, a notorious nuisance in Melton Hill Lake, had covered the vehicle. Nevertheless, it was a sure sign that the car had been there many years. Often the water seemed so cloudy that it was hard to see beyond a foot in front of you. A diver swam to one end, brushed away the mussels, and discovered an easily readable Tennessee license plate, ABA 676. It was Miriam's car. At that moment, the divers understood that they could find Miriam's car more easily than the police could since they had sonar technology. The diving team even had the luxury of hours and days of free time that the police might not have had. Once the vehicle was verified, the diving angels alerted Oak Ridge police. Miriam's car sagged under the weight of thousands of mussels as the tow truck pulled it out and put it on a truck. The rescuers had tried to lift the vehicle with airbags to counter the weight of the mussels. However, they tore apart as they were trying to bring them up. The official said they had never seen anything like that come out in one piece. Later that night, the entire crew pulled the car out of Melton Hill Lake with human remains. A 16-year-old mystery was finally solved with the discovery of a vehicle towed from a lake in Tennessee. Police in Oak Ridge also confirmed that the car was registered to 84-year-old Miriam Hemphill, who went missing in 2005. However, authorities can't be sure how the car ended up there. The officials applauded the divers for their work. Authorities said they were awaiting test results to see if the remains in the car were in fact Miriam Hemphill, in the hopes of finally giving her family some long-awaited answers about what happened to her. Mysterious Hook would like to honor the Depths of History and Exploring with Nug team for their dedication. It is infrequent to see such selfless people worldwide who tirelessly work to bring families closure. Search and recovery dive teams, including Depths of History and Exploring with Nug, had the chance to bring out closure to the families of disappeared loved ones lost underwater. Due to people's outstanding support, they are solving missing person cold cases. So let's make it possible for them to provide this free service to families and law enforcement by watching their documentaries, buying their merchandise, and donating. Ben Rank was just 29 years old when he was found deceased in his renowned snake breeding facility. Benjamin Blue Birch Rank was born in August 1987 in Missouri. He grew up in the countryside alongside his family. Ben had an older brother, Sam, with whom he shared a very close bond. In 1989, the Rank family moved to a picturesque farmhouse. The boys spent a lot of their time outdoors, and it was then that Ben began to take an interest in snakes. A tragic incident in September 1992 triggered a series of unfortunate events. The family was away when a gas leak occurred, leading to an explosion in their beautiful home. The Ranks were forced to move into a trailer. After some time, Ben's mother Kim was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Despite these hardships, the family overcame them. They were very close-knit and always supported each other. In any situation, recovering from previous tragedies, In 2002, they moved to a new home, where a special room was designed for Ben to keep his snakes. In 2009, after a long battle with cancer, Kim passed away. Before her death, she made her sons promise to look after the farm and pass it on to their children. As time went by, Ben's love for snakes knew no bounds, and the young man founded Renwick Reptiles, which soon gained recognition. This allowed him to sell snakes worldwide, from the United Kingdom to Japan. Breeding snakes became the meaning of his life. He was described as a great breeder who was devoted to his work, caring more about the snakes than the money. The reptile farm bred a multitude of reptilian subspecies, growing and reproducing both the most common species and some of the rarest subspecies on Earth. Ben's reptiles were of immense value. Just a portion of his python collection was valued at over $1 million. Ben was a solitary man who had long aspired to start a. In 2010, at a party, he met a woman named Lindley. Their relationship moved forward quickly. Within weeks, Ben introduced his girlfriend to his brother Sam and Sam's fiancé, Eli. Eli and Lindley had sons from previous relationships, so they found common ground quickly and became friends. Lindley soon became part of the Rank family. The couple began living together. Lindley helped Ben at the snake breeding farm. They were in love and lived as a full family. In March 2012, Lindley gave birth to their daughter Amelia. Ben was thrilled to become a father. However, the happy family life faced challenges again. Frank Rank, Ben's father, encountered significant business troubles. Previously, he had engaged in fraudulent stock transactions to cover medical bills and Kim's treatment expenses. Just a day before the FBI planned to visit the farm, Frank took his own life. Frank's passing halted the investigation. The sons were deeply affected by another parental loss, but managed to pull through by supporting each other. Ben inherited the house and farm, while Sam received an amount of money far exceeding the house's value. Each brother had their own family and children, but this didn't stop them from living as one big family in their parents' home. They lived together harmoniously, with Sam spending his inheritance on repairing the farm without hesitation. Initially, things were fine, but soon financial disputes caused friction between the brothers after their father's death. Ben focused on his business and family and decided to formalize his relationship with Lindley. On April 14, 2014, they married officially, adding Lindley as a full-fledged member of the Rank household. Ben and Lindley also opened a second business, a spa named Essentia Spa Incorporated, but it faced financial difficulties under Lindley's management. Financial issues often led to arguments between them, despite Lindley's hard work being insufficient to cover all salon expenses consistently. At the same time, Sam and his wife faced significant financial challenges. Ben allowed them to sell some of the furniture of the house. Lindley disapproved, leading to a rift between the families. The relationship was irreparably damaged. Ben decided to improve the family's financial situation by arranging to sell some rare reptiles for a significant sum. However, the deal fell through due to a tragedy that occurred on the farm. On June 8, 2017, Lindley walked into one of the farm's barns. There, on the floor in a pool of blood, lay Ben. Lindley called her brother Sam for help and dialed the emergency number. She reported that she had found her husband unconscious on the ground. During the conversation, Lindley dropped the phone and ran outside. Sam continued the conversation and confirmed that his brother was dead. Sam suggested that a snake might be to blame for what had happened. Montgomery County Sheriff's deputies were called to the snake breeding facility for the first time in a long while. Law enforcement officers were afraid to enter the farm facing over 3,000 snakes and having to conduct an examination of a man lying in blood, wary of a possible attack from a deadly viper believed to be the assailant. However, when coroner Dave Colbert arrived and took a closer look, he discovered a shell casings on a shelf at eye level. This was something far more sinister than a venomous snake bite. Shell casings were found near the body, but no weapon was discovered. The assailant had shot Ben multiple times in the back and head. None of the relatives heard shots or saw the attacker. Sam and Lindley were taken to the sheriff's office for questioning. Lindley suggested that Sam might be involved in her husband's death, even citing a motive. Apparently, Ben wanted to sell the house, but Sam was opposed. Sam was asked to undergo a lie detector test, which he passed. The police had no reason to detain Lindley and Sam, so they were released. The investigation into who might have wanted Ben Rank dead began with various theories proposed, the first being robbery. But it remained unconfirmed, as none of the rare snakes were missing and all valuable items remained untouched. Just days after Ben's demise, police interrogated Lindley again and tested her hands and clothing for gunpowder residue. However, results came back negative. Following her husband's funeral, Lindley ceased communication with Sam and Eli altogether. She sold her husband's business, inherited the house, and sought to claim a life insurance payout for Ben worth $1 million. After receiving the insurance money, Lindley planned to sell the Rennick family home for $740,000. Sam's family was notified about the eviction. Discovering the rapid insurance claim and business sale following her husband's passing, Sam Rennick suspected his brother's wife in the tragic event. Sharing his suspicions with investigators, Lindley was called in for another interrogation. There she admitted to having complex relations with Ben and occasionally meeting with a man named Eric. Eric had an alibi, so he was excluded from the list of suspects. Lindley's admissions were startling. It turned out about 3 years after their marriage was officially registered, she was unfaithful to Ben with at least 2 different men. Messages between the couple showed that Ben suspected his wife of infidelity, which had indeed strained their relationship lately. On October 5, 2017, the Missouri State Highway Patrol conducted a polygraph test on Lindley and informed her that she had failed it. However, without solid evidence linking her to the crime, she was released. Nevertheless, the investigation into Ben Rennick's case slowed but did not cease. Later investigators learned that a month before Ben Rennick's passing, Lindley had made her first attempt on his life. She concocted a story of Ben being a cruel tyrant who oppressed her daily and even physically assaulted her. She shared the story with a spa salon coworker to garner support and assistance. They plotted to end Ben's life by giving him a poisonous protein shake laced with 15 Percocet pills. Unaware, Ben drank it. He fell severely ill during that period but survived, oblivious to having been poisoned. Lindley Rennick was interrogated by investigators 6 times in total, and further assistance in the investigation came unexpectedly. On January 14, 2020, information from a state prison emerged. A witness claimed to know about Ben Rennick's death. The witness was Brandon Blackwell. He told Missouri State Highway Patrol investigators that Lindley had shot Ben and conspired with her ex-boyfriend. Brandon mentioned that he had dated Lindley while she was married to Ben. 1.5 years after Ben's death, they had a child together, but by 2019, they had separated. Brandon claimed that Lindley confessed to the act and conspired with her Sparseland coworker, Ashley Shaw, and another ex-boyfriend, Michael Humphrey. Years after Ben's demise, Lindley Rennick and her former boyfriend Michael Humphrey were arrested for his death. However, following their arrest, Lindley and Humphrey pointed fingers at each other. So who really pulled the trigger? According to Michael's testimony on the day of the event, he went to the farm with Lindley, who asked him to pose as a buyer. He put on gloves and was supposed to shoot Ben, but couldn't do it. Eventually, Lindley took the gun and shot her husband herself. The investigation into Ben Rennick's death continued for 3 long years. On January 16, 2020, arrest warrants were issued for Lindley Rennick, Michael Humphrey, and Ashley Shaw. Ashley was offered immunity in exchange for her cooperation and testified against her boss. The former Sparseland employee shared that Lindley had complained about her husband and convinced her to assist in a plan. She claimed that Ben was constantly belittling, demeaning, and even physically harming her. Fearing divorce would lead to Ben gaining custody of her children, Lindley decided to eliminate him. Planning together to poison him with a lethal cocktail during questioning, Lindley and Michael accused each other of Ben's demise. In October 2021, Michael Humphrey faced trial in Ine County. His lawyers hoped that revealing the murder weapon would lead to a second-degree murder charge. Despite possessing the gun, no conclusive DNA evidence was found on it. To lessen his sentence, Michael Humphrey made a deal with the prosecution by disclosing the location of the murder weapon. His cooperation led to a life sentence on a less severe charge of second-degree murder without defense at the trial. On January 3, 2021, Michael Humphrey was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. The against Lindley Rennick began on December 6, 2021. She was charged with the shooting and demise of Ben Rennick on June 8, 2017, at his snake breeding facility in New Florence. Court documents stated that the plot to end Ben Rennick's life originated in Lindley's spa salon. The probable cause statement mentioned that Ben was aware of Lindley's financial troubles and that Lindley feared Ben could take her children away. This led her to fabricate a story of domestic abuse. The first attempt to end Ben Rennick involved a protein shake laced with narcotics. Search warrants for Ben and Lindley Rennick's Facebook accounts confirmed the protein shake story and Ben's awareness of Lindley's financial issues. The court hearing detailed the events of the day when Ben Rennick was killed, fully reconstructing the sequence of events through cross-examination. On the day of the incident, Michael Humphrey picked up Lindley from the spa salon, while Shaw sent text messages from Lindley's phone inside the spa to conceal their true location and mislead the investigation. According to court documents, Humphrey intended to end Ben's life but asked Lindley to do it. After firing shots, Humphrey collected most of the casings but missed some in his haste. He also disposed of Lindley's clothing after returning to the spa, where Lindley took a shower, which helped avoid detection of gunpowder residue on her hands and clothes. Defense attorney Catherine Barrere asked Lindley Rennick to share her personal and family history, education, relationship with ex-boyfriend Michael Humphrey, work history, and the lead-up to her marriage with Ben Rennick. This was aimed at portraying her as a victim of domestic violence. However, no evidence of such violence was found, undermining this defense narrative. Michael Humphrey was part of a group that allegedly planned to end Ben Rennick's life. Lindley Rennick described her relationship with Humphrey as codependent, involving his drug dealing and her addiction. She ended her relationship with Humphrey at the end of 2010, according to previous witness statements, but reconnected with him about a month before Ben Rennick's death. Lindley Rennick firmly denied the prosecution's allegations regarding the alleged plans to end Ben Rennick's life. This included the supposed failed attempt to poison Ben with a protein shake containing narcotics. The couple faced financial and marital difficulties. The spa center wasn't doing well, and contractual deals for selling snakes had yet to provide financial benefits. In court, Lindley admitted to having extramarital relationships with several men, expressing deep regret for her actions. By the time she considered discussing divorce, she was unsure who to turn to given her father's history with divorce and his strong views on both divorce and affairs. Seeking someone to support her in her conversation with Ben, she reached out to past boyfriends and reconnected with Michael Humphrey. During cross-examination by the prosecution, Lindley confessed to willingly participating in her husband's death and intentionally concealing Michael Humphrey's involvement. She cited marital difficulties, including disputes, alleged physical and sexual abuse by Ben, and the stress associated with his snake breeding business. Lindley feared Ben and worried about his reaction whenever she brought up the topic of divorce. On June 8, 2017, she brought Michael Humphrey to the farm that day. She claimed her presence at the farm was not meant to end her husband's life, but rather to discuss a divorce. Lindley mentioned taking out some trash from Ben before entering the nursery where she saw Humphrey and Ben washing their hands. Lindley described being unable to hear their conversation as she was preoccupied with how she would tell Ben she wanted a divorce. Her voice trembled while recounting seeing Humphrey draw a pistol and shoot her husband. Hence, she heard more shots. Reality hit hard. When Lindley returned to the snake breeding facility and found Ben's body, she called Ben's brother Sam, who arrived soon after. They checked for a pulse and whether Ben was breathing, hoping he might still be alive. Lindley expressed regret for not immediately informing police that she had been at the breeding facility earlier with Michael Humphrey. The life insurance policy that Ben had taken out years earlier could have resulted in a payout of $1 million. However, Lindley waived her rights to this money. During the court hearing, Lindley expressed regrets about her ongoing deceit. "I was just trying to escape from the truth of what happened," she stated, clarifying that she never wished for her husband's death. Following the final verdict, Lindley Rank's defense team chose not to petition for a new trial, and no appeals were filed against her conviction. Lindley Rank filed a defamation lawsuit against Blackwell, asserting that his statements about her involvement in her husband's death were false. However, prosecutor Kevin Zellner questioned Lindley's testimony during cross-examination. He queried why she didn't check on her husband after hearing gunshots, and why she didn't call 911. Furthermore, he asked why she sent friendly messages to him and Humphrey after the shooting, and continued to lie even when emergency responders got involved. During sentencing for second-degree murder and armed criminal action, Lindley Rennick broke down but did not admit guilt. On December 9, 2021, she was found guilty of second-degree murder. The 33-year-old was sentenced to 13 years for murder and an additional 3 years for armed criminal action in January by Judge Kevin Crane, a total sentence of 16 years. Sam Rennick's final words conveyed deep disappointment. He was astonished that an individual's life in Missouri could be valued at just 13 years. Ben Rennick, a young man brimming with hope and a promising future, found himself in a dire situation due to the actions of one woman. The unpredictable month of April brought the crisp mid-spring weather to Sparta, Tennessee. On the 3rd of April, 2000, 18-year-old Erin Leigh Foster was getting dressed up at home at night. Erin and her high school best friend, Jeremy, took her black Pontiac Grand AM and left to attend a party. Before leaving for the party, they picked up Erin's brother, Will Foster, earlier from an arcade. Later that night, after attending the party, at around 10 p.m., both of the Tennessee teenagers were about to reach home. But neither Erin nor Jeremy were seen again. It was said that Will Foster was the last one to see them both. What happened to Erin Leigh Foster and Jeremy Lee Betchel on their way home? Are they still alive? What prompted Exploring with Nug to enter the scene? Sparta is located in White County, Tennessee. It is a fascinating small city with a historically significant downtown neighborhood. The city was named after the ancient Greek city-state Sparta. There are boutiques and fantastic local restaurants. Everything is family-friendly and the city is usually booming in the summer. The Calf Killer River flows through Sparta and brings a much-needed air of tranquility to the city. Our story begins here in this peaceful spot in river country. On February 28, 1982, a baby girl was born to Cecil Aaron and Lee and Williams Foster named Erin Leigh. She grew up as a perfectionist in everything she did. She assisted her mother around the house and helped her dad with mechanical work. Erin aspired to become an airplane mechanic after high school with her mechanical talents. She had great pride in herself and her family, always willing to help her younger brother, Will Foster, if needed. Erin was a White County High School student, and it was there that she met Jeremy Lee Betchel. He was born on the 7th of November, 1982 to Ronnie Lee Betchel and the late Rhonda England Betchel Ledbetter in Smithville, Texas. Jeremy loved music. He enjoyed playing and became an athlete in high school. Erin and Jeremy turned out to be two of White County High School's best friends. Everything seemed normal for Erin and Jeremy until the year 2000. Sparta was stuck in the middle of the spring season during April. When the sky grew dark on the 3rd of April, 2000, Erin and Jeremy took Erin's 1998 black Pontiac Grand AM with the tag 473 EJR and left her home. They were heading to pick up Will from the arcade to go to a local party. At around 10 p.m., they both left. Neither Will nor the teenagers' friends could imagine that they would never see them again after the party. The following day, Erin's mother, Lee, informed her husband Cecil that their daughter hadn't returned home from the party. However, Cecil persuaded and consoled her by saying that Erin was planning to move out. Cecil reassured Lee by saying that their daughter probably would be back in a few days. So they both patiently waited. Then one night turned into another and panic sank in. As days passed, the teens' parents grew concerned for their daughter and reported Erin and Jeremy missing. It was a week after their disappearance that the concerned parents reported their missing teens to the White County Sheriff's Office. When the officials questioned them about the whereabouts of their kids, the teens' family recounted the incidents on the 3rd of April as best as they could remember. The officials started their search and reportedly followed leads that did not have a connection to Erin or Jeremy. and as expected, it all led to multiple dead ends. The missing case turned into a hopeless situation, and the missing teens' parents weren't satisfied with the investigation, since their children's rooms had never been searched. Also, none of their friends from the party had been brought in for questioning. Nothing could stop the case from turning cold. But 12 long years after Aaron and Jeremy's disappearance, in 2012, White County officials got a tip about 2 individuals being murdered and left abandoned near a well site. So the police periodically tried to dig up and recover the bodies after they received reports. But unfortunately, nothing came up. After 2012, there were no leads in the case. So understandably, the people in and around Sparta started to give their personal views on that. But nothing seemed to help the families recover their loved ones. Tragically, Jeremy's mother died of cancer without ever knowing what happened to her son. Almost 2 decades after their disappearance, in 2021, a selfless divers team named Exploring with Nug became aware of the case. As many might already know, the underwater scuba diving Angel team has solved the most challenging cold cases while exploring creeks and rivers. The group specializes in employing sonar technology. While every PD looked for clues and tips on the surface, Jeremy Sides and his team looked underwater to bring closure to the missing person's family. As a result, they have become a lifeline for families seeking answers. When Jeremy Sides of Exploring with Nug came across the case, the selfless hero decided to search for Aaron and Jeremy. During the initial search in Sparta, he didn't inform anyone. On the 24th of November 2021, the scuba diver tried to track down evidence in the missing teens case. The first search was an unsuccessful attempt. However, the search video was uploaded, and he told his viewers he would visit again to bring closure. And luckily, one of Aaron's family members saw that video. On the 28th of November 2021, when Aaron's family member was attending the church, she spoke to Sheriff Page, the man in charge. She asked the officer whether he knew Exploring with Nug or had seen his recent video, and the officer said no. So they spoke about the video, and Sheriff Page asked her to send him the link to that website. Eventually, when he got home, Page viewed that video and realized that Exploring with Nug was using an advanced scan sonar technology that their department didn't have access to. Also, he thought Sides might have been searching in the wrong area. So after reviewing the case thoroughly, the official found that the missing teens were both lost near Aaron's home. After a close inspection, he also fixed the precise location where the teens had gone missing 21 years ago. It was precisely between the center of Sparta and a big river near Aaron's home. He then contacted the scuba diving team and told them that they had been searching in the wrong area and gave them the correct location, which was the Calf Killer River. The lead investigator also said that while he was keeping the case open, they had ruled out foul play in the deaths. After collecting all essential information from the official, the diving angels changed the search location to Highway 84, Calf Killer River. When Sides came upon the case, he was determined it was worth a trip to the small Tennessee town to see if he would have more success than during his previous efforts. So on the 30th of November 2021, the diving team reached the Calf Killer River and utilized advanced sonar technology to search for any submerged vehicles. It didn't take long for Sides to detect a car. As soon as he spotted the vehicle, he dove in to see it for himself. Then he retrieved the license plate from the vehicle, indicating it was in fact Aaron's car. Sides had also found human remains inside the vehicle. The Calf Killer River was turned into a crime scene. Sides called Sheriff Page as soon as he made the discovery. Sheriff Page contacted Major John Meadows and his team to help them with the identification. They arrived at the crime scene within minutes to investigate, which led to the confirmed identification of the vehicle. While pulling the vehicle out, new questions surfaced about it as it was found 12 feet underwater. There might have been fishing happening there, and the team felt badly that nobody had noticed such a submerged vehicle for 21 years. However, the car was finally pulled out of the water. Some identified human remains were sent to the medical examiner for examination. Page was confident that the remains belonged to the missing teens, and he thought that the highway likely didn't have a guardrail in 2000. The police suspected Aaron and Jeremy had lost control of their vehicle and landed in the water. Aaron and Foster's family were notified after the discovery. The officials felt terrible for the teens' family, both for the loss and for the haunting rumors and horror stories that had been told over the years. Sheriff Page thanked everyone involved, especially exploring with Nug and Jeremy's sides. Even the local Pizza Hut showed their support by supplying food for the team. Mysterious Hook would like to honor the Exploring with Nug team, who voluntarily performed such selfless service. Unfortunately, we rarely see such altruistic people who tirelessly work to bring in grieving families closure. Due to the people's outstanding support, such volunteer search teams have solved many missing person cold cases. So let's make it possible for these selfless heroes to provide their services free of charge to such families and law enforcement by watching their documentaries, buying their merchandise, and donating. It was the coldest month of the year in Ohio, 2022. During these cold and snowy times, the Chaos Divers were called to Ohio to solve the case of a missing woman. The diving team was about to begin a search for a 2005 Suzuki Forenza in the bodies of water with lower visibility. Unfortunately, while the diving team was putting in tireless efforts into finding that vehicle in Ohio Valley, they found 13 vehicles submerged in the bodies of water, including a black-colored Ford F-250 truck. It was a game-changing moment when the Ford found among those 13 vehicles turned out to be a lead in a 23-year-old FBI cold case. Who owned the black-colored Ford F-250 and what was inside it? How did the discovery of the vehicle solve a cold case in Ohio State? What made both Chaos Divers and Depths of History work on this case? Welcome back to Mysterious Hook, where we shed light on under-the-radar, high-profile cases across the country. I'm Matt, and today we're looking at a 23-year-old FBI cold case solved by Chaos Divers and Depths of History. Without any further ado, let's dive right in. Ohio is also known for the widest point along the Ohio River, which is approximately 1 mile at the Smithland Dam near Smithland. The average depth of the Ohio River is about 24 feet. The river is the source of drinking water for more than 5 million people and supports 160 species of fish. In addition, more than 30 million people live in the Ohio River Basin. But not many had guessed that the river was the spot of a crime. A volunteer diving team was brought into the case for searching for a disappeared woman near the Ohio Valley, and the team was named the Chaos Divers as they were focusing on the case. As many might know, Chaos Divers are compassionate people who started as an environmental cleanup to make a better place for all aquatic life, and later they transformed into selfless heroes. The diving angels always believed that many people disappearing with a vehicle for a long time had a high potential of being found in the water. So initially they saw people by accident, and now they're doing it purposely, traveling the country and trying to bring closure to families of the disappeared ones, which is the ultimate aim. So they were working on Ohio State for a disappeared woman whose last cell phone ping was from Marina's location. The diving angels were looking for a vanished woman and her vehicle. While these people were looking into the bodies of water in Steubenville Marina, the Jefferson County officials contacted this team. The officials requested to have an eye on a black-colored Ford F-250 truck during their search. So having this in mind, the diving angels employed sonar technology to locate the vehicle of the disappeared woman. During the search for the woman, the Chaos Divers found a total of 13 vehicles, of which one matched the description given by the Jefferson County officials. The divers found a vehicle verified to be a black Ford F-250. Other verification hadn't been done since the plates weren't found. The team immediately reported their findings to the Jefferson County officials. The diving angels never knew that the discovery would bring closure to an unsolved 23-year-old FBI cold case of a disappeared older man named Charles Floyd Hanlon. But that was the time when Chaos Divers started to know more about Charles and his mysterious disappearance that haunted his family for 2 decades. Who was Charles Floyd Hanlon? Well, let us go back to 1999 to understand Charles a bit better. It was a blooming season in Bloomingdale, and the calendar pointed to October 10, 1999. Born in 1940, the 59-year-old Charles was getting himself ready to leave in his 4-door extended cab, 1999 Ford pickup truck with Ohio license plate number BGA 4049. His truck's wheels were heading towards Florida to pick up a motorcycle. But soon after that, neither Charles nor his truck were ever found. Also, his family members never heard from him again. After his disappearance, The family members were shocked and immediately notified Jefferson County Sheriff's Office about Charles. When the officials questioned Charles's whereabouts, the family told them he was about to pick up a motorcycle in Florida. The family members added that they had no idea about his whereabouts. Also, they characterized Charles as 5 feet 11 inches, 178 pounds, Caucasian male with brown hair, eyes, and a mustache at the time of his disappearance. They even mentioned that Charles had medical conditions, including asthma and diabetes. Gathering all the information about Charles, officials confirmed that they were searching for him in Bloomingdale, Ohio, but no clues led them to Charles. Also, it was the late 1990s period when there were fewer technological advancements. Such factors contributed to converting the endangered missing person case into a cold one. Decades had gone by since Charles's disappearance, and still his family was left unanswered. After getting to know the mysterious disappearance story of Charles, the diving angels understood that they were connected to one of the most prominent disappeared person cases in the Ohio Valley. Charles would currently be 81, but at least after 23 long years, the angels were kind enough to bring closure to the case. So after finishing their ongoing search for the vanished woman, the Chaos Divers were back in the Ohio Valley with another public-spirited team named the Depths of History. It was their second visit to this area, and they started to dive into the water to get back to the truck. When they got into some of the deeper areas of the Ohio River, of course, they might have felt that it was utterly dark. However, they tried to stand on bedrock. Usually the bottom was mostly gravel if people were diving and got about 10 feet away from the shore. Most of the mud seemed to be near the shoreline. Nevertheless, nothing stopped the diving angels from discovering the vehicles. The first car was a Lincoln Navigator linked to an insurance company, but the second vehicle was one of interest to local law enforcement. The diving angels found the truck similar to the description of the one belonging to Charles Hanlon, a Bloomingdale man who had been missing since 1999. So the Chaos Divers, Depths of History, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, and Toronto Fire pulled out of the river at the Steubenville Marina. Charles's family members, Carolyn Parr, kept one hand on her aunt, Ethel Stevens, and the other on her phone. As the two of them stood on the riverbank, their attention focused on the tow truck pulling a long submerged Ford pickup out of the Ohio River. She felt that they had a lot of unanswered questions, but hopefully the discovery would help them discover what happened to Charles 23 years ago. The family members said that they were excited about this development. But unfortunately, since the truck was too bad a shape, Jefferson County Sheriff Fred Abdallah said it was hard to identify it at the scene correctly. They didn't get any VINs in the normal areas where they would be marked. The vehicle seemed so deteriorated and dirty. So after recovering, they just thought of moving the truck to a secure spot and getting it cleaned up so they could locate the VIN on the engine block or the frame. It was a tedious, time-consuming operation since they were going through every piece of dirt, silt, and debris in that vehicle. Fortunately, they matched the VIN found under years of dirt and debris on the truck's windshield to the VIN Ford Motor Company and had supplied them years ago after Charles had turned up missing. Later that day, Sheriff Fred Abdallah Jr. gave the family members the news that they had waited 23 years to hear. He said that Green's Towing had been positively identified as the 1999 Ford extended truck Charles was driving when he disappeared in October 1999. And after announcing, the officials thought it was heartbreaking and sad for the family, but Charles Hanlon's family would have slept easier that night as they finally got some closure. Finally, the Chaos Divers of Southern Illinois were back in Jefferson County to take another stab at closing the book on some decades-old mysteries of the Ford truck, which they believe belonged to Charles. Ford F-250 come out of the water. He thinks it's a good day to watch. Funded by Facebook and YouTube, their services are provided free of charge. It is a humbling and beautiful thing these diving angels are doing. Also, other teams across the country are doing the same thing, and the teams never stop there. These diving officials also believe that getting those cars out of the river was good for the environment. So after many hardships, the Chaos Divers, Toronto Fire, and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office marked other vehicles with magnets and floating buoys, pulling several vehicles out of the water. Finally, Green's Towing pulled them out of the rest of the way. Officials confirmed that they found roughly 13 vehicles in the Ohio River from a green buoy to the train bridge. Sheriff Fred Abdallah Jr. said that they were ecstatic the chaos divers came, but he added that they wouldn't be able to tackle such kind of a project alone. We believe that offering such closure would help the investigators further their investigations and give the families of the disappeared ones some peace and healing time. Mysterious Hook would like to honor the Chaos Divers and Depths of History team who voluntarily performed such selfless service. Their work was a collaboration between the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Toronto Fire, and other local agencies. Due to people's outstanding support, such volunteer search teams have solved missing person cold cases. So let's make it possible for Chaos Divers and Depths of History to provide free service to families and law enforcement by watching their documentaries, buying their merchandise, and donating. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of unsolved mysteries. Cold cases not only challenge our understanding of the past, but also ignite our curiosity and determination for answers. Remember to subscribe to stay updated on our latest investigations. And if you have any information regarding the cases we've covered, don't hesitate to reach out. Together, we can shed light on the shadows of the past and bring closure to those who seek it. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth.